Well, hello everybody. Hello, Bettina. How are you today?
Hi, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm doing pretty good, actually. It's very spring-like, which is nice.
Yes.
In fact, we were sitting in the kitchen having our lunch, and I said to Peter, I see brown earth out in the backyard.
Yes, there was a lot of snow to be melted, and it has mostly gone away. I'm
Yeah.
thrilled by that. It was funny. I was watching a actually I was reading last night, and some articles, and I was reading articles that were published like a month ago for context. And on some of these articles, like 1 month ago, it had the weather strip along the side, whereas like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it was like all like -22, -21, -17, and that real brutal cold snap we've just kind of been through. And it's been a really active and cold winter for here in Toronto.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure it's not the end of it, but it's a
Oh,
nice little reprieve, especially after
yeah.
last week, where every single day that I had to be somewhere at a certain time at rush hour, it was snowing.
Yeah.
However, um,
Yeah.
that's the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's nice to have like a couple of days of like 8 degrees where it's just all kind of melts away and you get reminded that there's ground underneath all that snow.
yeah. Yeah, and you don't have to put your boots on, and it's kinda it's that freedom of lightening the load.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it must be. And I'm sure for everybody, they have their things they look forward to in the spring, and I'm sure for you, seeing some of that ground, that brown in the backyard, is gets you going for gardening and start thinking about the plots.
It did. I mentioned seeds.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was kinda shut down because it's too early, but, I had to say it.
yeah. Yeah, I know. Ashley and I were at a greenhouse a couple of weekends ago, and we're going again this weekend. There's in Burlington. There's wiener dog races for the family day long weekend.
No, really?
Yeah,
Where is this?
this is at the Terra Greenhouse,
At
and
Terra? They
yeah,
have some really interesting things. They have a market on I think Terra in Hamilton has a market on, Saturday mornings. Did you know that in the winter?
a farmers market. No, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. No.
They do. I'm pretty sure the one in Burlington, or not Burlington, the one in uh, well, I say Oakville, but they say Milton. It's on
Right.
Britannia and Trafalgar. They have a winter market that starts like the second or third week in January and goes till mid-March, something like that. It's really nice to get out and be at a market, and it's in their greenhouse, so it's really nice and warm.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a kind of a nice thing to get out and do on a Saturday morning. And I think the one in Hamilton has it also,
Okay.
actually.
Well, it's something
So
that
you
we
should
can,
look into it.
yeah, for sure look into because it is really nice, even having gone because we kind of went because it had been so cold and so snowy to go inside a greenhouse and see a whole bunch of living things and have all their plants and their trees and have it be warm and it's kind of like taking a 30-minute vacation, because of the ecological surroundings are so different than anything outside. And you get outside and the wind like bursts your face and
Yeah.
you go to the car, but inside it was like I was looking at these citrus trees like lemons and limes and oranges you can buy these little dwarf trees and
Yeah.
they actually produce fruit like in year two. So I don't know, it gets your mind spinning.
I know. Yeah. That's what we see when we go to the market is that, it's out in the greenhouse where they have all their citrus trees, and you're like, oh, that's so cool. But that's where we met our lady, our farmer that we get our meat from was at the
Okay.
Terra Market. So, and they have lots of really neat, interesting things like um, extra virgin olive oil and, well, all sorts of really neat artisan things that you don't see, in the grocery store or whatever. So it's
Yeah.
fun. It's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. It's a nice reminder for if everybody gets sick of the winter time, that there are like these massive greenhouses you can go and be a part of like plants and so on. And
Yeah.
it's a nice little hour for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you get there early enough, you can park close and you don't have to feel too cold.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that walk to the car. I think that's what it reminds us all, like up north dwellers. That walk from the house to the car, because you don't really want to get up in like boots and scarf and gloves and winter coat just to walk, to a parking lot or to
Yeah,
your
exactly.
car. But it's that 30 seconds or that 2 minute walk to the car where
It'll get you.
yeah, you have that internal dialogue of how much you hate the cold. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways. we had an idea for. I'm excited for today's show idea. It's something that you've kind of put together as far as the 5 stages of spiritual growth. And when we were sharing it before the show and preparing it, it was I was getting it for me. And I can see it in a number of pursuits in life. This like 5 stages, and it's important to be aware of them. So maybe we don't fall so hard into the trappings of each one of these stages. And I just finished a book by Ray Dalio, who's an incredible business investor, and same thing for him. And maybe I'll go back to that, how it it is applicable to so many areas of life. And I'll let you take over from here. The 5 stages of learning a new skill, or finding something that's amazing for you.
Yeah. Okay, people, here we go. And you will know which stage you're at, I'm sure.
That's right. That's right. In which stages you are insufferable within.
Yeah, and what you have to look forward to or not look forward to as you go along.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is my perspective. Like everything that I share is my perspective. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means it's how I see the world, how I see my own journey of spiritual growth. And this, being the good little 5 that observes, this is what I've observed in my travels up and down the emotional road of spiritual growth. So a couple of weeks ago, it hit me, and I think because I may have gotten to stage 5, not that I'll stay there forever. I'm sure there's a lot of back and forth and up and down and whatever. But I had a glimpse of stage 5. Woohoo! And I started looking back at my own journey, and I started seeing that there really were 5 distinct stages. So stage 1 is that point in your life where you are so tired of being unhappy and miserable and negative, and nothing seeming to go right in your relationships, in your career, in your life in general. And you finally sort of break down and say, there's got to be a better way. That's really the first stage. And then you set about finding that better way. And that's a fairly simple, harmless stage.
But see, I think it's one of the most crucial ones. People talk
It
about
is.
rock bottom, and it may not be rock bottom, but it is that crucial moment where you say, that's enough of this. There has to be a better way.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's that, that turning point where you really realize that whatever you've been doing in the past is not really serving you anymore. And there really needs to be changes made, and there must be something out there that can help. And that's actually how Course in Miracles was born. The 2 psychologists or psychiatrists, whatever they were, working at a university, a lot of infighting in their department and politics and a lot of stuff going on that wasn't pleasant. And they said, there's got to be a better way. And then, it started creating itself, or channeling, or whatever. So it's interesting. When you put that call out there, things will start to come into your vision that are the kind of things that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's amazing that the brain reacts to that question. The brain has to answer the questions you ask of it, or ask from it. There has to be a better way. And then it's amazing the way that this works, the universe, or how it's set up. You just start picking up things that perhaps is a different, better way. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's like when you buy a new car and you say, "Oh, I'm going to buy
Right.
this particular car in this color," and you get the car, and you think it's not a very common color. Then you get the car and start driving around, and all you see are, the same car that you have. It's really, what you focus on will fill your vision.
Yeah.
So step 2 is, or stage 2 is the, oh my gosh, what I have found is so fantastic. This is amazing. I must tell the world because everybody needs this. And we start preaching and, going on and on and on ad nauseum about it. and you watch as people kind of see you and coming and avoid you because they don't want to hear it anymore. That's stage 2. And that's the excitement of, I can't believe that, this thing I found is actually working and it's changing my life. I mean, there's such good intentions behind it, um, but we get a little overzealous about it, and we start sort of um, spoon feeding it to everybody we meet, and it becomes like it does fill our vision. It becomes our whole life, and we find very little else to talk about because it's this big exciting thing, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just with spirituality. I just want to, it can happen with. I'm sure we've all had people in our lives we've come across where we've been the one pulling away because it's been about veganism, or it's been a new stock tip, or it's been a new business idea, or a new workout regimen, or anything, or a new diet. These things happen in so many areas of life. So I think I just keep wanting to say how broadly this applies, and how I think how much you've kind of nailed it with these 5 steps.
Yeah. Well, if you've ever watched Big Bang Theory, when Howard goes to the space station and he comes back, all he talks about 24/7 is about how he's an astronaut and he's been to outer space. It's that kind of thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, look at this great thing I've done," and oh my gosh. So that's stage 2. Stage 3 is the place where you are really settling into the growth and really are seeing, you kind of let go of the, having to convert everybody, and you realize that it is really only about your own self growth and your own self changing your own perspectives, and not about changing the world. And you really settle into it, and you start reading everything you can get your hands on, and you're like a sponge because you're just absorbing everything that you read and see and hear about spirituality. And when I use the word spirituality, I mean that journey towards remembering your loving presence, not in a religious way. You can't get enough of it. I have
Hmm.
shelves and shelves of books from that period in my life where I was like, oh, I can't get enough of it. I
Yeah,
just,
hours
um,
and hours each day.
yeah, like videos and, online and YouTube and books and books and books. That's stage 3. then, then your life is pretty good. Things are going well. You're feeling good about everything that's going on around you, and you go, you know what, I got this. I know how to do this. I know how to deal with it. I'm good. I can tell you how to do it, and you can't tell me anything I don't already know about this, because look at me, I've done all this work and I've done all this reading and I've read everything I need to, and I've taken all these courses and gone on these workshops and da 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 da. And that's all great, but how the mighty do fall.
Hmm.
Because at some point the universe will say, oh, you think you got it, do you? And then something will happen that will just rip you down off that mountainside and put you right back at the bottom again, as if you never did a darn thing. And it's very humbling, but it is such a necessary part of that growth, because it reminds us we don't know anything. We really don't know anything. That everything is a day-to-day, moment by moment experience, and that we can be missing out so much if we go into that place of saying, yeah, I got it covered. You
Hmm.
can't tell me anything I don't already know. Um, because we stop being open to what we already know.
Yep. Yep.
We start
Yep.
closing ourselves off to even the things that we already know, things we know that we've forgotten that someone may be reminding us of, and we kind of get our back up because, like, it's like, I already know that, blah, 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 blah. Um, but it's so important to get to that stage and to recognize that I don't know anything. And I can be in that place of not knowing anything. I can be open to everything. And I may hear or see or experience something that I would have missed if I had stayed in my state of, yeah, I
Mhm.
got it. I'm cool. I know everything I need to know now. Now I just got to live it. Um, it's really interesting how it happens, and it's kind of really a sore spot when it does, because to go from that stage of being all that in a bag of potato chips and just being a bag of crumbs is a pretty big wake up call, a pretty big wake up call. But I think that fifth stage is really when you've got it. Not stage 4 where you think you have it,
Mhm.
but stage 5 when you realize, I don't know anything and I'm open to hearing whatever anybody has to offer me, because it's only from being open that I um, will gain more knowledge and more wisdom and and learn more about this journey that I'm on.
Yeah.
And that's basically it.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think it's so accurate. I mean, it's so close to home, and I resonate so much with it, and I laugh at it, and I laugh at myself going through these stages, and it's amazing how I see it everywhere in life. Of all the people that I'm privileged to know, we all kind of go through this um, in great storytelling. Um, in Into the Wild, that movie is a great example of these 5 steps. Of that surety in step 4, where you're like, I got this, and I figured it out. I'm an expert. And then that one thing that slips through the crack, or maybe it's a couple things, or it's a character flaw, and it just weasels itself in there, and it just brings down the whole house of cards. Um, and I think it's why, as a society, we're so fascinated by great falls from power, great falls from grace, and how often that great sports star ruins his life with drugs, or with violence, or with domestic abuse, or something, or a politician, or we just love, we do have this almost mean loving watching in the public circle. People fall, and if you go grocery shopping, when you pay for your groceries, you know there's 13 publications, and 4 of them are all about that, about this famous person, how their life is crumbling, or this divorce, or this, or Dr. Phil's getting divorced again, or like, it's just, we just love, there is a part of us that loves that, and that can be examined in, I'm sure, in a series of shows about why we are like that, why we do kind of get some pleasure out of it. It's watching that hubris it come full circle. And I think it's also why it's really important, and why I just finished a book on the 12-step program, and how it has this worked into it, where you can get sober, you can get past your demons, and you can feel, oh, I'm great at this. And why it's so critical that the language is that I'm forever now a recovering alcoholic. I
mhm.
am an alcoholic, even though I haven't drank in 8 years. I'm still an alcoholic, and it's one day at a time. To avoid these catastrophic falls, because especially with some of the things that is dealt with in that program, they can blow up a life that is fragile and recently repaired, and with people whom relationships define your life, and you can ruin them again with one fall. And it's important that we're aware, and even if we're not addicted to a substance, to be aware of the 12-step program, or to be aware of these 5 steps, or to be aware of just the way that we are as humans, because we make this mistake. I say this all the time in so many areas of life, but we make the mistake of thinking, of making permanent that which is so obviously temporary.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, I think that the whole idea of the 12-step program, and um, it's based and sort of directed towards addiction, and who in this world isn't addicted to something?
Hmm.
It may not be alcohol, it may not be drugs, but it could be any number of things, distraction, to food, to, I mean, there's
Pride.
so many different, yeah, there's so many different things um, that can be, addictions. And so I don't think any of us are immune. And then the other thing is, you mentioned about, seeing the mighty fall and how we seem to be drawn toward that. And I think it's because we connect best,
Mm.
we connect best through vulnerability.
Hmm.
We don't connect when we're, feeling strong um, and sort of assertive. And it's when we're soft and when we feel vulnerable and when we can share that vulnerability and that humanness with other people. I think that's when we really connect with them. And I think people who are in positions of power, we're more attracted to them when they share with us um, that humanness, and that they don't hide that from us, but that they let us have glimpses of it. I'm not saying they should be in that space all the time, but to give us glimpses of it so that we don't forget the humanness of them, and we don't forget that they're no different than us. And I think when we see these magazines where people are going down, um, it makes us feel better as human beings, because really, when you think about it, being a human is not about perfection or about getting it right all the time. It really is about messiness and about frailty and about, you know mistakes and errors and fear. And so I think we really connect when we realize, and it makes us feel better when we realize even those people who you think have it all going for them are human, and they have stuff going on for them too. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, being a yeah, it is that is life, right? It is the uh, progress towards something that you deem valuable. And these 5 steps are kind of the the process by which we take on something that's really meaningful to us. And it can be spirituality, it can be parenthood, it can be a relationship, it can be whatever. And these things always occur, and things are going so well, and we get this false pride, and something will make us trip up and fall. And what's really important is that we don't get stuck in the I'm crap, or feeling like a victim of these things. This is life. This process repeated in all the areas of life. And what's most important, what's most amazing, is when you pick yourself up, and even you look at, I mentioned Ray Dalio because he's one of the most richest people in the world, and he got really rich by trading livestock and futures in the Midwest, because he was associating weather patterns and all sorts of things, and he could predict the up and downs of prices. He got so rich and he got so famous, and then it's like, oh, and then he went broke. He got too proud. This happens. I just had a second example in my head too about Elon Musk, for example. Elon Musk creates PayPal, and then moves on to Tesla and the amazing things he's doing now. And he was like a fraction of a hair away from losing everything. He was in so much debt, trying to start up Tesla and get, what he needed to keep going. He asked his employees if he can stop paying them, like just on the razor's edge of failing, you know and that now, who knows what, that story is still young, what he's going to do for humankind. And that is what life is about. And we might not succeed on the grandest scale like these people, but in our own personal lives, in our own parenting, in our own relationships, in our own careers, in our own life happiness, this is what will happen to us over and over again, these stages. And it's important to know them. And when we do come crashing down, or when we do miss something, when we are feeling really prideful, that we don't wallow, that we dust ourselves off, find out what went wrong, and begin creating anew. And as long as we can stay in a place of creation, um, it's going to be a good life.
yeah, yeah, and I think, beating ourselves up about the fact that, we're only on stage 2 and we should be on stage 3, or we've fallen from that pedestal. I think that forgiveness really needs to be a part of that. It's like, forgive yourself and move on. Because staying stuck in that place of beating yourself up about, you know, finding out that, oh, I didn't know it all after all, like you said, is not going to keep us in that creative space that we want to be in um, to keep building on our spiritual growth and our lives.
Yeah, and I think it's also important, not only to forgive ourselves, of course. I mean, most importantly, because we need to be in a good space so that we can contribute to the world as a whole, but also to keep in mind to forgive others when they go through these things, and anything that helps us realize that we're the same. That that of course we have our amazing, unique, and individual differences, but essentially, what runs us, what operates us, is all the same. And when somebody else goes through these 5 steps publicly, or maybe you have a view into it that not many people do, to be forgiving of them and to realize that they're just the same as you, except the topic on which their 5 steps just ran their cycle is different than the topic of the 5 steps that you've run your cycle on things. And the more that we can then connect and, like you say, be vulnerable through that, be able to be honest and open and sharing of our falls, um, is going to foster just such a deeper level of love and appreciation of that relationship, and that outlook we have to the world and society as a whole. And the more that we can stay in that space and more realize that everybody's going through the same struggles, it just may look different on the surface, but we're all going through the same machinery, uh, problems of being a human being. We can really have a lot of compassion for each other, and we can really, um, I feel like when it's unhealthy, it goes down the path of violence, or it goes down the path of us and them. And I see no greater threat to our existence or our thriving than the thought of us and them. When we can realize everybody is in us, we can really work together and really do great things in the next 1,000 years.
Yeah, yeah. I really think you've got something there.
Hmm. Well, how did you feel about finishing us off with our meditation? We're half an hour into our show.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
All right. So let's close our eyes and take a deep breath right into the belly, feeling that beautiful oxygen touching on every cell in our body, down to our toes, out to our fingertips, into our head, and every point in between. And as you breathe, pull your shoulders back, open your chest area, allow the heart to be open to whatever is there for its growth and learning, to be more loving, to be kinder, to be open to everything that is offered us, whether it resonates with us or not. It doesn't hurt us to listen, be with the information, the knowledge, the wisdom, to sit with it, to give it a fair amount of consideration, because we never know until we open up to it what may be on the other side of it for us, what we may gain from it, how it may change our perspective for the better, how it may help us to continue to grow, and how, in the helping us to continue to grow, it can also help the others in our lives as we become the expression of that loving presence, which is the foundation of who we are. That source that we sometimes forget because fear has pushed its way into our lives. But beyond the fear, and in opening up to the world and understanding we are no better or worse than anyone else, we are just a different incarnation of that spark of God, and that how we live in this human existence may be different, but as the spark of God, we are all one. And when you're ready, wiggle your fingers and your toes and bring yourself back to the world.
Thank you, Adina.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next.
Have a great week, everyone.